A nurse in Houston works 60 hours a week. She makes $92,000 a year. She packs her lunch. She drives a used Corolla. She clips digital coupons. And she has $47,000 sitting in a retirement account. Now, meet her neighbor. He's a software engineer, $340,000 a year, 2 Teslas in the driveway, kids in private school, date nights at steakhouses 3 times a week. Last month, his water heater broke. The repair cost $1,400. He put it on a credit card because he didn't have the cash. Same zip code, completely different financial realities. But the wrong one is the one Americans assume is winning. Today, we're talking about a trap that most high earners never see coming because the trap looks like success. Segment 1, the illusion of the high earner. Let's start with a number that should stop you cold. According to a 2026 Goldman Sachs report, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 report living paycheck to paycheck. And among those earning over $500,000, 40% say the same thing. 4 out of 10 people making $500,000 a year feel they have no financial cushion. That's not a rounding error. That's not a sample size problem. That is a systemic pattern hiding in plain sight. Now here's the assumption most people carry through life. More income equals more security. Hit $100,000 and the stress disappears. Cross $200,000 and you're basically set. Reach $500,000 and money stops being a concern. The data says otherwise. In fact, a PWEMT study found that 48% of Americans earning $100,000 or more reported living paycheck to paycheck. That's higher than some lower income brackets. Higher income, higher financial anxiety. How is that possible? Because income doesn't create security. What you keep creates security. And most high earners are keeping almost nothing. This is called the high-income poverty trap. And it doesn't care what's on your W-2. It only cares what's in your net worth. Segment 2, how the trap is built. One upgrade at a time. Nobody falls into this trap all at once. It's not dramatic. There's no single bad decision. It's 1,000 reasonable decisions that quietly add up to a cage. Here's how it usually goes. You get your first real job, $65,000. You feel great. You upgrade your apartment, reasonable. You buy a nicer car. You earned it. You start eating out more. You're busy. You deserve it. Then the raise comes in. $90,000. New apartment, better neighborhood. Upgrade the car again. The old one was fine, but this one just feels right. Gym membership, meal delivery apps, streaming subscriptions, 4 of them, $130,000. You're in the top 15% of American earners. The house comes next, guest bedroom, 2-car garage, a vacation that's more resort than road trip. And then at some point, you can't even tell exactly when it happened. 100% of your income has somewhere to go the moment it arrives. This is called lifestyle inflation. And economists have a name for why it's so hard to reverse. The hedonic treadmill. Each upgrade becomes the new baseline. Downgrading doesn't feel like returning to normal. It feels like punishment. You can't pull your kid out of private school. They have friends there. You can't sell the house. Your identity is in that neighborhood. You can't go back to a Honda. What would people think? The lifestyle becomes load-bearing. Touch one piece of it, and everything feels like it's falling apart. And so, you keep running. Faster and faster. Earning more, spending more, but never actually getting ahead. Segment 3, the millionaire next door paradox. Here's where it gets really interesting. The people who actually build wealth, they look nothing like the people who appear wealthy. The classic research from the millionaire next door, still relevant decades later, found that most millionaires live in average neighborhoods, drive older cars, and rarely display what they have. A 2026 Empower study confirmed it. Over 62% of everyday millionaires still budget, hunt for deals, and avoid extravagant lifestyles even after crossing the $1 million threshold. The typical millionaire has never spent more than $399 on a single piece of clothing. About 60% live in homes worth less than $500,000. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Meanwhile, your neighbor with the leased Range Rover and the Rolex might be living on credit and anxiety. The researchers who wrote The Millionaire Next Door created two categories. Pause. Prodigious accumulators of wealth. People who accumulate far more than their income would suggest. UAWs. Under accumulators of wealth. People who earn a lot but have almost nothing to show for it. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. A $50,000 a year school janitor can be a PAW. A $700,000 a year cardiovascular surgeon can be a UAW. The income doesn't determine the category. The behavior does. They even gave us a formula to check where you stand. Take your age, multiply it by your pre-tax annual income, divide by 10, that's your expected net worth. A 45-year-old earning $200,000 should have around $900,000 in net worth. If you're significantly below that number, you're under-accumulating. You're earning, but you're not building. Most high earners fail this test. Badly. Segment 4, The Psychology of Never Enough. The Charles Schwab, 2025. Modern Wealth Survey found something remarkable. Americans believe you need $2.3 million to be considered wealthy. They believe you need $839,000 just to feel financially comfortable. The median American household net worth? Approximately $193,000. So the average American is sitting at $193,000 while believing comfort requires $839,000 and wealth requires $2.3 million. That gap isn't just financial, it's psychological, and it keeps moving. 63% of survey respondents said it feels like it takes more money to be wealthy today than it did last year. The goalposts are on wheels. Someone reaches $500,000 in net worth and looks up to see that comfort now requires $839,000. They reach $1 million and discover that wealthy now means $2.3 million. They reach $2.3 million, and somewhere the number has quietly shifted to $5 million. No arrival, no finish line, just a moving target and a faster treadmill. This is partly driven by something that's gotten dramatically worse in the last decade: visible wealth. Social media didn't create status anxiety, but it supercharged it. The 2025 Goldman Sachs report explicitly cited keeping up with the Joneses as a driver of paycheck-to-paycheck living among high earners. But here's the cruel twist. The people you're comparing yourself to? Half of them are just as leveraged as you are. You're both performing wealth for each other while privately wondering why it never feels like enough. Segment 5. The debt nobody talks about. Here's a stat that should be front-page news but somehow never is. Total U.S. credit card debt reached $1.277 trillion in Q4 2025. That's the highest balance since tracking began in 1999, up 66% since the pandemic lows of early 2021. And high earners aren't exempt. High-income households, those earning over $100,000, carried an average credit card balance of $12,760 in 2025. The top 20% of earners hold 35% of total U.S. credit card debt, despite being a smaller share of the population. 36% of credit card holders earning $100,000 or more carry a balance month to month. Now understand the difference in why people use credit at different income levels. Lower-income households often use credit to survive: groceries, rent, utilities. The month runs out before the money does. Higher-income households use credit to maintain, to sustain a lifestyle that technically fits their income but leaves zero margin when anything goes sideways. Both groups end up in the same place, owing someone else money with interest compounding against them. And 61% of Americans with credit card debt have been in debt for at least a year, up from 53% the year before. Debt isn't a temporary problem anymore. For a shocking number of high earners, it's become a permanent feature of their finances. Segment 6. The savings rate that tells the whole story. You want to know the single number that explains everything: the U.S. personal savings rate in December 2025. 3.6% Americans are saving less than 4 cents of every dollar they earn. Compare that to April 2020, during the pandemic lockdowns, when the savings rate hit 33.8%. Stimulus arrived, spending opportunities vanished, and Americans accidentally experienced what aggressive saving looks like. That window is long gone. Now here's the critical insight. This pattern holds across income levels. Someone earning $75,000 who saves 4% sets aside $3,000 a year. Someone earning $300,000 who saves 4% sets aside $12,000 a year. The higher earner saves 4 times as much in raw dollars. But they're equally vulnerable to disruption because their lifestyle costs 4 times as much to maintain. Relative financial security? Identical. Both are one emergency away from debt. Now contrast that with how actual millionaires behave. Research from The Millionaire Next Door found that millionaires typically invest at least 15% of their income before paying for lifestyle. They treat savings as non-negotiable infrastructure, not an afterthought. The math on that gap is staggering. Earn $300,000, save 30%. That's $90,000 a year into investments. At 7% average returns over 20 years, roughly $4 million. Earn $300,000, save 5%. That's $15,000 a year. Same 20 years, same returns. Roughly $650,000. The difference between those two futures? $3.35 million. That's not the difference between a good financial decision and a bad one. That's the difference between financial freedom and financial anxiety for the rest of your life. Segment 7. The escape. But it requires one honest question. Breaking out of the high-income poverty trap isn't complicated, but it requires something most people resist: an honest audit of what all the spending is actually for. The doctor earning $380,000 could save $100,000 a year. The income is there, the capability is there, she just spends enough to prevent it. Which means the solution isn't a higher salary, it's a different relationship with what she already earns. Here's what that actually looks like. First, automate the savings before the lifestyle sees the money. Pay yourself first, not what's left over, first. If you earn $300,000 and automate $90,000 into investments on day one, you'll spend the rest and still live well. But you'll be building wealth at the same time. Second, audit every recurring expense ruthlessly, not to deprive yourself, to find the spending you don't actually value. Unused subscriptions. Memberships that provide status more than utility. Square footage no one occupies. Cars no one drives. The expensive convenience that's become an invisible habit. Third, separate identity from lifestyle. The hardest part of this isn't the math. It's deciding that your worth isn't defined by what you drive, where your kid goes to school, or what your house looks like from the street. Actual wealth builders are ruthlessly selective. They spend generously on what genuinely matters to them. They cut without guilt on everything else. That's not deprivation. That's intention. And 79% of millionaires got there without inheritance. Many of them never even crossed $100,000 a year in salary. They just kept more of what they earned for longer than most people can tolerate. Here's where we land. 77% of Americans don't feel financially comfortable, regardless of income. 40% of those making $500,000 live paycheck to paycheck. Credit card debt just hit its highest point in recorded history. And still, the cultural message is the same. Earn more, get the raise, land the promotion. As if income were the answer. It never was. The people who figured this out aren't necessarily the highest earners. They're the ones who decided, at some point, that keeping money mattered more than looking like they had it. You can keep running on the treadmill. Or you can ask a different question. What am I actually building toward? Because more income, spent the same way, just means a more expensive version of the same problem. The trap is real. The exit exists. But you have to decide you want out. If this video made you think differently about your own finances, share it with one person who needs to hear it. Like and subscribe for more different topics that will excite you, and so you never miss any. See you there.